Great. It's good to be here. I feel like a bit of a fraud because I sort of accidented on being here. I set out to just sort a problem in our church, which was the fact that there's a lot of single people, no one seems to be dating. So I started a little bit of work on that about a year ago, and just started thinking about that and talking to people about that. And then we thought we'd sort of resolve that problem. So I've kind of gone from there to being here kind of by accident, so bear with me. It doesn't mean I don't care about the topic, it's just that I'm quite surprised to be here at all. What happened initially was we set up a piece of research by an MA student called Samuel Verby to look at the culture of dating across the church. And I specialise in emotional and mental health, and one of the things that kept coming back to me was just the negative culture around dating in our church, and particularly how people were hurting one another quite badly. And I kept dealing with pastoral incidents where people were being quite duplicitous, not because they were sort of bad people, but just because they weren't really sure how to act where dating was concerned. The other thing that made me quite worried was that people were kind of fishing in two different ponds and kind of playing a backup plan game, kind of in bougies on a Friday night and in church on a Sunday night, and sort of dating in both areas, or dating in the nightclubs to kind of cover them over before they really found the one they were going to be with the rest of their lives in church. But of course, you can't really do that. It doesn't actually work like that. So responding to a problem. So then sort of tried to integrate some psychology around human attachment with some theology, and we kind of formulated this course. And I guess I just was going to tell you a bit about it and how it's gone. Practically it's gone quite well in terms of people want to go on it, which is a good start. We had 600 and just over 600 on our first pilot at Focus, which is easy because it's an easy win because everyone's already there, so it doesn't really count. But it went well. And then we did it again in February time at HTB, and we did it on a Sunday afternoon between 2:30 and 3:30, so deliberately kind of chose a graveyard slot to see if it was going to go the distance. And we had 330 attending for that one, so that was great. And people keep automatically say, what's the proportion? And I guess it was around 60-40, maybe 70-30 on a bad day. But generally, I'd say there was a really significant number of guys there and very eligible. I said if I was a nightclub promoter, I would have felt particularly pleased with myself about the turnout and people from lots of different churches. So it's just 3 sessions. And we want to make it easy for people, and I'll tell you a bit more about that in a moment. So the first principle we sort of start off with was defining dating, because without defining what dating is, you're always in trouble. And we tried to think of a better word for dating than dating, but we realised there isn't actually one. So I call it investing in an attractional relationship with a view to determining its suitability for deeper commitment. And is that all right? That's okay, good. Okay, the reason is, the reason I want to define it is because unless you start like that, people like I'm meeting in the world are thinking that dating is a great way to get off with someone. So actually, this is a great way of saying that's not the sort of dating we're trying to provide. We're trying to actually, the two points I want to make. One is investing. You've got to put yourself into this. And the second one is determining. That's there's an evaluation aspect of this. So you're actually doing something here that it's intentional and important. Now, every time you put up a definition, loads of people kind of critique it and come up with a better one. I'm sure there are lots of better ones, but this is just the one that we've been using. And then I like to kind of make things plain, and I think in the church particularly, there's loads of additional useless information that kind of floats about the place. And we need to just state things as they are. And the first one was just to say that dating is not biblical. And to actually say to people, look, we're doing the best we can with broken tools here. If we were going to be biblical, you would be in an arranged marriage. Therefore, that's over there for you. So you can be in an arranged marriage or not, because actually we don't do arranged marriages anymore. So it's just an arranged marriage, or there's this, which is dating. So we're doing the best we can in the gap. But don't please come out with 19 different biblical tools for dating, because they just aren't there. And I think we're trying to fleece people if we're trying to sell them a biblical model of dating, because there isn't one, however hard you try and extrapolate it from the text. And I think our single people don't like a sort of something that they feel is orchestrated to make them feel bad. We just need to say, look, you can either do arranged marriage or you can do dating. Dating means you basically have to arrange your own marriage. That's the short and long of it, okay? So it's the same sort of deal. You've just got to arrange it yourself. And that's why it's a bit tricky, and that's okay. But let's just be honest with our people at the start, and that's what we want to do, is just say, let's restate reality. By the way, this is just a few slides from the course, not just the course, just so you know. I like this. I read all the books. I've got to say, a lot of them I didn't like. A lot of them I thought they had some good stuff in. One I particularly liked was Andy Stanley's New Rules for Love, Sex and Dating, although the first 8 chapters are by far and away the best. Don't get lost at the end of the book. Kind of stop at chapter 8 if you're reading it yourself. Give it to someone else to read the first 8 chapters. And he says, become the person that the person you're looking for is looking for. So I sort of talk about how the way we spend a lot of time thinking about how we look and, making our muscles strong or spending time in the mirror trying to look like that. And then we spend the rest of the time looking around outside of ourselves to try and find the person who's going to complete us. And actually, the dating process is much more about becoming the person that person we're looking for is looking for, and actually making this a constructive exercise rather than something that's destructive. And when we ask God to transform us, there's something constructive that's always going to happen, and therefore the dating process doesn't have to be destructive anymore. It can be constructive. So we kind of look at this whole area, and I do a lot of myth busting, like, why are you doing this? Looking at all the stuff like FOMO and negging and all the nasty stuff, all the kind of horrible Tindery kind of stuff that goes on, just so people know that you know what you're talking about, but also so you can call out that stuff if it's going on in your own church. I don't know if you pivot effect, all these sort of things. Horrible books like The Secret, which trick people into thinking that they're doing good stuff and it's actually bad psychology. Let's move on from here. The date thing is this kind of acrostic of saying, this is the thing we're looking for. We're looking for someone to date where there's desire, because desire is really key. Again, in churches, people are often told that desire isn't really that important if they belong to the opposite sex, and if they're single, then they're eligible. And there's lots of unhappiness there because we've sort of lost sight of the sexual part of dating because we're so terrified of anyone actually doing anything with it. So we try and hide it. But actually, it's a really fundamental part of what dating is. Desire, like desire within you. The appropriateness of dating. Actually, are they married or single? It's an important question that we realised that people had to ask. The temperament of a person, because there's a lot of aesthetics, but I actually don't include them in my list. Just the temperament of a person. How can we value the character? And when I bring in the biblical stuff, I bring in biblical stuff all around this. And there's tons of stuff in the New Testament about how we should treat one another and how we should love one another and demonstrate all the gifts of the Spirit to one another. And actually, it's a pretty exhaustive list. And it's a powerful thing to share. But dating isn't biblical, but the biblical principles of how we relate to one another are pretty transparent. So that's where I bring in all the Bible stuff. And then the etiquette, which is really a bit brutalized. It is a bad way of saying the other things that put you together. You know, that actually lots of us have been on a holiday somewhere and fallen in love with someone else on that holiday, and they lived in Bilbao in Spain, and it was a lovely romance over the course of a week, but actually it was never going to make a marriage in the long haul. So that whole, what is it in your world beyond the connection that keeps you together? So getting people to think about those sort of things. We're looking in that kind of a framework. By the way, just so we're clear, the sessions are there's 3 sessions: how to getting ready for a date, how to go on a date, and then how to work out whether your date's got a future. And like the rules are, no talk about sex or marriage, because actually we do this to single people all the time. We start talking about stuff that's completely irrelevant to them. They haven't been on a date in 5 years and we're already telling them what they can't do in the bedroom. So that's not a great place to start, actually. It's not a kind place to start or a positive place to start. We've got to start with actually how can we have something to talk about, which is actually going on a date. We created this, we'll call the vision dating formula, and the idea is that attraction plus connection over time equals relational bonding. So this is a bit of the psychology behind the material. Actually, the fundamental principle here is that there is a science to dating, and actually that it depends upon attraction and connection to create something we call relational bonding, and this is true if you in the sort of psychology of human connection. The reason for showing this is to give everyone a kind of deeper understanding of how you can actually forge a healthy connection with someone else. So rather than saying, oh, I really like them, it actually becomes like, oh, okay, is there attraction there, and is there a growing connection, and how is that formulating something that's much more deep and valuable? Because one of the things we worked out from our questionnaire was how short, how brief people's dating encounters were. You know, some went out for a coffee to Costa on a Saturday morning for 40 minutes, and then they came out and they're like, oh no, the answer's no. but you're like, oh, hold on a minute. This is only, they were late, you were early, the coffee wasn't that good, you actually only talked for 5 minutes, and now you're telling me that there's no opportunity that something good could come out of this. So this is being a bit more scientific about that. And I've been quite churchy in terms of translating into this candle illustration, which actually I quite like. The arrows aren't particularly good on that slide. I think it's just changed a bit, moving it over. But the idea is that if you think about a traditional church candle, what I talk about, I strip out the wick from a candle and I show them the wick. And attraction over time equals burnout. So we all know people who've literally fallen head over heels what they think is in love with someone. They might spend a lot of time kissing them, very little time talking to them, and after about 6 months they're just like, oh no, I'm not interested in this anymore. So I light the wick and just show them it goes up in flames like that. Then I take a candle without the wick and I show them the candle, that's the connection. And then you try and light that and you just get a drip, and no one wants to marry a drip. So that's that bit that you get, that just doesn't ignite at all. That's the connection bit. But if you house the attraction inside the connection and you light it, you get ignition. So then you get this amazing relational, emotional bonding, which actually burns really well over the long haul. Now, interestingly, every candle's wick is nearly always the same diameter, but different candles have a different circumference in their connection. Shows you only a small amount of attraction is necessary for a really powerful burn on the candle. And the only sex bit I do on the talk is to say, look, the reason God's called us to keep sex inside marriage is that connection actually protects attraction. And like the intimate part of this, the really powerful part, is at the center of a really forged and powerful committed marital relationship. The more connection you have, the slower and more powerful the burn. So a birthday candle, if you light a birthday candle, it doesn't last very long. Very little connection and a lot of attraction means it kind of burns down quickly. A big church candle can go for a year or more because a huge amount of connection and just a small amount of attraction through the middle, and you get a really good burn. It's just an illustration, but it's just a way of describing this principle, because people focus far too much, in our experience, on attraction and not enough on connection. So they say, oh, but do I really fancy you? And they don't think a lot like, do we have anything in common? Do we want to talk to each other? Do we actually get on? So that bit's kind of part of how we're working this one out. This is an interesting psychological fact. It takes a minimum of 7 cumulative hours of dating to attain to emotional bonding. So the reality is that a lot of our people are really doing themselves in because they start dating someone, they go out on one date and they don't feel anything, and then they think, oh, that's the end of that then. So they've basically missed the boat. It's also why after 3 months of dating, so many people end potentially a very healthy relationship. Because what they do is they move between an adrenal-based relationship, one that's based on excitement, into an oxytocin-based relationship, which is one based on commitment, and they think actually that they've just got bored. It's just like when someone phones you up who you're dating and you get super excited, but then after 3 months you're just not that excited anymore. People think that that's because the relationship is over, but actually that's just when the relationship is beginning. It's because of the hormonal changes in our brain to move from excitement / into commitment. So people are missing this importance of the longevity of dating. I spend a lot of time talking about breakups because I call this spliticut. This is how you break up, because actually it's totally unsafe to date in our churches if it's not totally safe to break up well. And actually we've created a massive problem for ourselves by making breaking up bad and almost like, oh, you need to come see the vicar because you've had a breakup and, like we need to talk about this. And actually it's just awful, because what we've done is we've said you can't have any discernment. And if you think about arranged marriages, there was probably a huge amount of arguments and stuff going on in the family about who was appropriate, and a lot of different ideas and trials of what might work out. And now we're asking people to do this for themselves, and yet we're saying actually you have to choose perfectly, and if you choose badly and things go wrong, or even if you don't choose badly, if things just go wrong, then you're going to be in the sin bin because actually you've got to break up. Whereas what we should be saying is, if you date well, with love and generosity and kindness and integrity and within appropriate sexual boundary, then actually shouldn't be any problem with breaking up at all. If it's not a relationship which has got a future, ending it is actually a really, really positive thing. Nikki, my boss, runs obviously the marriage prep course. On the marriage prep course, we don't lament it when people sort of decide that actually they don't want to continue to marriage. We think it's a good thing, because actually we realise that they've made an informed decision. Actually, that's going to protect them from a lot of pain in the future. We should be approaching that same thing with dating, but not for people who are just kind of going out there to get their own sexual ends. That's not this sort of dating. This is for people who are genuinely invested with a view to future commitment and just realised actually there isn't a future commitment here because this relationship hasn't got a future. So ending it should be a good thing, but how we do that's really important. So there's a few ideas: honest but kind, safe place, good time, reflective not blaming, face-to-face, boundaries not bargains, never spiritualised, agreed recovery phase. This is just a few ideas for how we can do that really well. But in the church, we've got to make breaking up a positive thing to do if it's the right thing to do, and stop brutalising people who have been dating and broken up. And especially, I remember being bounced out of the church when I was a student for having dated too many different people. Now, I got to say, I probably deserved it, but actually at the time it made me just leave the church and go somewhere else. And that's not right. A lot of people go through quite a lot of dates before they find someone who they can make a long-term commitment to and for whom that's right. It doesn't mean they're a bad person, they just need a bit of guidance. So that whole area of breaking up is a good thing potentially to do, a positive thing to do, is an important part of what we sort of try and incorporate in the course. And then, also, of course, giving people a view to moving forward and how to do that. But just 3 sessions, does what it says on the tin, no spiritualisation, no talk about sex or marriage, really simple, really practical, loads of single people there having a bit of a laugh, lots of nodding of heads and sort of going, oh yeah, I know what you mean, that's the sort of experience I've had. And then we run a few dating events off the back of it as well. So they've been super successful, people getting together, having fun, a few relationships spouted out of it as well. And that's about where we are. Are there any questions? We've got 3 minutes, is it? 3 or 4 minutes? Yeah, yes please.
Can you say a bit more about boundaries and not bargains?
Boundaries and not bargains. So what we do is, just in the spliticate bit, what we're trying to say is, it's not, it's boundary breakups, it's not bargain breakups. So it's not like, oh, well, if I think we'll have a break for about 3 weeks because I just need to work out how it's going. And then we'll come back together after 3 weeks if that's all right with you. And maybe could we still be friends? All that sort of stuff. It's like bargaining your way into the relationship without actually really holding your boundaries and being firm about a breakup. So it's a way in which Christian men I've seen particularly can be quite guilty of not actually being firm and clear about the fact that they are breaking up, and instead they can create a whole load of smoke and mirrors and sort of make it look like they're not really finishing a relationship, and actually that can be really hurtful for the partner over the long haul. Yes?
You sort of mentor people who don't seem to be dating well.
It's a few too many people to do that for. I mean, like 330 on the last course, I don't know, most of those people are probably not dating well, that's why they're there. The best we can do with that sort of group is give them really good information, try and encourage them to have conversations with each other. Hopefully they get all the information together, they start challenging one another about stuff that's going on. We're also trying to change the culture in the church more generally, because we reckon if you put good information in people's hands, it changes and challenges everyone's bad information. So the stuff I do on all the negative dating culture, suddenly all these people are going, oh yeah, that happened to me. And then they're all telling their friends what happened to them. And then when it's about to happen to them again, they go, oh, I know what that is, and I've got a label for it, and actually we can stop that because I'm not going to engage in that kind of a thing. So it's a bit brutal. It's a bit kind of front forward, but we're trying to get people to generally own the information, and that will change the culture as far as we can. Yeah, yes, hello. Dating events. Oh, well, they're it's all very piloted at the moment. It's all like, we got 330 people we got 316 people in a room, and we did a date my mate thing. So all of them brought a member of the opposite sex that they didn't fancy, didn't want to date, and then they teamed up, and then they go round the night, and they have to basically big up their partner to the next couple. And so they have to introduce the female partner to the male partner, the male partner to the female partner, and basically say loads of wonderful things about them. And then they have a little card, and if there's someone that they like, they just note down their code, and at the end of the night we match them all up, if they've got a first choice. And what's great about it is it's not like speed dating, because that makes everyone feel terrible. But if you go to a date my mate night, everyone feels great, because the whole night someone's been telling everyone else how wonderful they are. So when they walk away from the evening, even if they haven't got a date, they feel really blessed and really encouraged. and it's really positive, and it's also really safe. So that's a good event. Yeah, hi.
Do you get time on the evenings to do any ministerial prayer for people who have been hurt by participation?
No, we don't. We're not. We're deliberately not going into any sort of fix it approach. In terms of we're not trying to mediate from the past. We're not doing prayer ministry. We're not doing any healing or deliverance work or anything like that. And we're not also talking about singleness at all, about why singleness is good or bad, or what the debate about singleness is, or whether marriage is good, or why it's better, or if it's better, all that sort of stuff. We don't touch any of that. Because actually, what we want to do is keep this absolutely simple. Like, you want a can of Heinz tomato soup, you go and get a can of Heinz tomato soup, put it in the microwave, and then you eat it. That's it. We're not discussing whether you need bread with that or Worcestershire sauce or anything else. Just that. Just what it says in the tin.
Yeah. Are you successfully using technology?
We talk a bit about that. I mean, I think, we recommend like Christian connections and stuff, and we talk about, people dating. We talk a bit about the dangers of Tinder, particularly, primarily because we're saying, is it in line with our vision dating formula? Like, is there actual real investment? And actually, is there a real intention for something more deep? But I think technology is a really, really important part of this marketplace. And actually, what we're encouraging people to do is to actually connect more broadly. And there's lots of groups on Facebook that we try to encourage people to be part of. We're not managing. I mean, look, when I say we, I am not doing any of this stuff because I've got a really busy job. I just happen to fall into it and sort of trying to find our way as we're going along. But in terms of the course itself, saying to people, great, yes to technology, yes to online dating in a Christian setting, yes to some social media stuff, brilliant. There's a tool to use there, and then how can you incorporate this? But I'm a great believer in face-to-face. So whilst we're saying yes, it's a tool to get face-to-face. That's my thing about face-to-face, is my bugbear. Time for one more question? One more? Anyone? Yes, hi.
It seems like a big emphasis is dating can be constructive rather than destructive, or looking at the negative potential partner. Is that part of your strategy? So people have to see the good in each other?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, look, one of the principles of the course is that you'll leave everyone that you meet better off for having spent time with you. That's the plan. It might be painful breaking up, because breaking up is always painful, but it doesn't have to be bad breaking up. And you have to hate everyone who you've broken up with. That's the thing. So it's actually, how can we make sure everyone who engages in dating in the church has a positive experience, not a negative one? But also, how can we make dating a good thing to do? I meet so many single people who feel a bit embarrassed that they're dating, and it's almost like there's some shame attached to that. And I think it's a terrible shame. Actually, the church should be celebrating dating, talking about dating, encouraging dating, blessing their people and teaching them how to date. It shouldn't be a sort of secret thing, negative thing, and only when you found the person who you're going to spend your life with, you're going to come out and say, ta-da, here I am. So it's all about how we can make people feel loved and release them from shame, and give them constructive tools to do what is quite a practical job. I mean, look, I hope this has some help. I don't know if it will be, but I certainly wouldn't claim to be any sort of an expert. It's just an idea for you. I'll leave it with you. Thanks very much.